And there's a number of forces that are trying to convert that into a park,
Yeah.
Battlefield Park out there. And in fact, I was talking to Patrick Schroeder, the head historian at Appomattox, about a little bit about that yesterday.
It's a small world, but anyway, this is back the open field that right now it's got the corn back there, but the gate was back this way. That's looking north, the Richmond and Danville Railroad. And we used to walk across this field, and I'll tell you, we walked across the field one time and we got spread out, and there, over top of this hill, you go down, and then when you come back up, we were up here one time, and we looked up and there were 50 was bulls to us, and they were just standing in a line looking at us. And what happened, the scoutmaster was back in the back, and the boys were up here halfway, and he was trying to what happened was one kid panicked and ran. He started running for the woods, and that all of them took off after him. And the next thing I know, kids were all over this field out here. They had kids up climbing trees over there, and we had to get everybody back together at this fort. So I guess, during the Civil War, none of these trees were here. Here's the fort in the background. But if you can picture, it's probably, as far as you could see, for the fortification, no trees, and also on the other side.
Yeah, see, what they would do is they did this at High Bridge. And so they would have, there was artillery in here. And typically they would have one on both sides of the bridge.
Right.
And they would have a clear field of fire. So there would have been no trees around this thing.
Right.
And these trees here, of course, even though not authentic to the original setting, is what has preserved this thing.
Right.
The root system.
Well, I've got some information and about what actually happened down here. Protected the bridge. You see the railroad tracks are continuing down. Down this way over here.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually, when we get up over here, you can actually see the beginnings of the bridge back over. It protected that bridge.
Okay. Yep.
So, what was August Kautz? I can't, the German's name?
Kautz. Yeah.
By the way, I'm talking to the Reverend Jeffrey Schroeder here. This is Bob Jones, Gramps Chula. That they were coming through here. The reason the fort survived is basically their priority was tearing up these railroad tracks over here. So, and they succeeded in that, but there was a skirmish. They burned down, just before the end of the Civil War, they burned down Chula Junction. We went through back up here, and they burned it down. They came through here, tore up track. Well, they right there, a year later, they had the little skirmish here, Battle of Flat Creek. I think they were approaching from the south, the cavalry, and they came over here, and they were, I think, with torches. They were going to burn the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere over here, on the other side of the fort, there was what they call them, rifle pits.
Yeah,
they had them down in the ground, the trenches,
mm-hmm.
and the sharpshooters kept them from burning the fort. And I think, but they dismounted with the torches, and they tried to come out this way. So
mm-hmm.
Some of these guys that with my scout troop out here will probably remember this tree exactly right here. We built lean-tos. We would go in there and get the woods, and this has been cleared off more. There were more trees and all right where we're standing. So you see the bulldozer back down there. So he's got it so that he can grow his pumpkins and all now. But you did not have these railroad ties out here. That's something that's new. This is of course, like I said, that old Johnny house is like for hunters. I said that wasn't here.
Mm-hmm.
It's
like a Marriott.
This is the trench right here. We had to be careful because there was a lot of barbed wire down on the ground, right?
Uh-huh.
So when we would be running around out here, I mean, literally, you just never knew what was out here. It was so dense in the woods.
And put
This,
that copperheads out there in hot weather too.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, like I said, these railroad ties and this little bridge here was not here when I was a boy. And I asked the owner about it here.
That would be the moat.
Right.
They would have put a moat around these things.
Well, you can see it. Yeah, the moat that ends up right here is where they threw it's
that bridge across.
Built by slaves, so they throw the dirt up, and like I said, this wasn't here. And I always envisioned either a gate or wagons, like maybe because this would be the entry where they would get supplies to go into the fort.
And then they would have artillery in here and see if this had ever, when it got overrun by federal troops, of course, they would grab the artillery and pull it out.
Right. Well, see, that's a railroad track right over there. And I'll tell you what, many a night you could actually feel the ground just vibrating. It's like 60 guys grabbed your bed and started shaking it when it would come through that on a train.
I can imagine.
Well, I've been on the river. I've been on the river, and you could actually see the water just shaking. The train tracks will be above me, up there, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, this is really well preserved.
Well, so the bridge.
Really interesting.
Because, like I said, it's just nobody. It's one of those things. I kind of always like, how many people would he? I don't want to sit here and it's like, hey, this is the newest attraction. You know what I mean? I mean, we're talking about history, hallowed ground. And,
yeah, it's best that this remain, unknown about. So you can see.
Yeah.
And even, people with good intentions, Civil War enthusiasts, but, it's not good for these things to be climbed all over.
Right.
Wear it down over time.
Right.
I mean, this is in such good shape, though. This is really nice.
So really nice. I think, the hunters and all, come in here, and right where these benches are set up, that's where there's a campfire. So if you dig down right where this bench is here, you would find the coals of 1963 Troop 863 that used to camp, come back down and have campfires. I actually had a canoe turned over right back over here. It just flipped it over. We brought it up from Dry Creek, and we brought the canoes in. We would camp in here at night. So if you've got the I guess what's the word for these?
These are ramparts,
right? Right.
Trench,
exactly. Right. So.
And they would have had munitions stored in.
Right. So if you can, that's a fire pit right there. I mean, this is years and years and years of fire pit. And it's got ashes from when I was a boy. Like I said, I'm 75 years old. I was 13 when I first came to this place. So if you can do the math there, it's been
a long time ago.
Oh yeah. This eastern side right over here is always on the other side been the steepest side. So the river, Appomattox River runs along that way over there. And then you've got Dry Creek, it comes back up around here. And then you got the railroad tracks, which was the old Richmond and Danville Railroad right over here.
They put this here in this corner where you have Dry Creek going into the Appomattox because you have water on two sides.
Right.
And then you have the moat, and then you have the embankment.
Right.
You would have the artillery, and you would have the entrenchments, the trench lines,
right,
and so forth. But yeah, it's really impressive.
So anyway, I just grew up. This was, I know it belongs to somebody else, but it's part of me.
Yeah.
Because I spent so much, and I just remember us right here on this rampart right here, which is, let me see, this would be south. Facing the south, we would have church service right up here. I would have 30 boys. We're just sitting around up here, and we have a little church service. I used to do a little thing like, trying to get everybody together, and it really took hold. I would have people come here and say, I would just like to take 3 minutes, because you got kids, you're running all over in the woods, and we're doing different things, and I'm like, let's just have a. I said, sit them down, because I had some things I wanted to talk to them about, and I say, like, I want you to sit here for 3 minutes and just listen.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
you used to be, you wouldn't hear anything.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, I would have each one, no matter how, somebody's got to say something.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to say, oh, I had a good time. What did you have a good time? I would, going like, let's have a conversation here. Exactly. And this is basically where I grew up. So we're talking, if you could picture guys here, we play, the game of capture the flag. Yep. Were you in the Scouts? No. Okay, but you know what capture the flag. So we're playing capture the flag. When you're up here on the top of the fort, this was no man's land, which was you were huh? That's new. There was, I think they were, I don't know what they were doing. There used to be a crossbar at the top of this old telephone pole. I don't know if they were bringing stuff across the, they might have been bringing stuff over the breastworks here so that they didn't do any harm to it. Like I said, they've got hunters and things like that. But you can see down, you can actually see down to Dry Creek. It's right down here. Bob, can you give me a hand? Yes. I got you. So anyway, when you ran down the side of this fort when we were playing, you disappeared. I mean, there was no clearing down here. I mean, this has been cleared out. It's just like he's running cattle and got that fence going up now. Well, I'm glad they damaged this. Well, I brought. Oh yeah. Oh, we had some pretty exciting games. So the whole thing, if you were on the inside, in the inside you protected your flag down there, right? On the outside, there was no boundary. You just kept running when they're chasing you. And we were just. I'm
glad you're here to help me.
So, well, I'll tell you one thing. I have. You got all these rules and everything, but as the kids, our job as kids is to try to break as many rules as you can. It's the adults, right?
Yeah.
So we would get on this railroad track. We'd go like, okay, I'm going to come around the other side. I have walked down there and walked across that trestle down here, and you get in the middle of it, and those trains are coming. You're going like, oh, I can jump in the water. Well, we didn't realize it was 50 feet up. We're dumb kids. So we're talking years and years and years later. I brought 4 scouts out here, and I mentioned about me doing that across that trestle. I went across that trestle. Then I started asking. I thought I was the only one that dared do it. And you sit there going like,
probably everyone.
Exactly. So anyway, I love this place. I mean, I absolutely love it.
This is home. Yep, this is home. I saw some scratch marks back there in the pine tree. It said Chula Gramps was here.
Oh, Robert,
Kilroy.
No.
Now, if you find Kilroy out here, you'll have to be sure to tell me.
Right. No, see, that's the thing about it. It's really it's hallowed ground, and I hear, I'm kind of like. Anyway, I wanted to record this. Never wandered up this side too much.
That's the moat. The moat was right there.
Yeah.
And see, they that would be, typically, ideally full of water. So if they were assaulted by cavalry or by infantry, it's a anti-personnel obstacle. Then of course you would have had riflemen up here. So, this is what happened at Fort Gregg with the collapse of Lee's lines on April the 2nd day.
Right.
And they had to go through a moat and up the embankment into the artillery in order to capture that.
Well, when I first met you at Sailor's Creek and at the museum there, and you just look at the old pictures and people have no idea or can realize what the carnage was. And these back roads out here, I always thought of as like when they did the retreat to Appomattox, they went down a road. I didn't realize they went through hundreds. Everybody was to the wind. Roads, it was just absolute chaos and just leaving wagons and mud and just. Anyway, it's if you look at it, like I said, I know enough, and I've talked to a lot of the older people, and this is what really gets me at times too. Is I start thinking like, when I was born in 1950, there were people that were in the Civil War.
Yeah, the last ones died in the mid-50s.
Exactly. So it's going like, I remember there was an old guy down the street, and I just maybe talked to him once, but then I remember that guy. I said, I bet I could talk to him forever now. I don't even know what his name was.
When you have the chance, people often don't appreciate the opportunity.
Right.
And when I was born on February 5th, 1964, and that was the 99th anniversary, 99, of the Battle of Hatcher's Run in Dinwiddie County in the Petersburg campaign. The 99th anniversary. I just got in under 100, barely.
Well, and, for me, in 1965, that was the 100th anniversary in Virginia, and it was big all over history. And that's I think that's what kind of brought me in with history. I kind of liked it a little bit. Plus, I'd already been out to this fort, some with the scouts. So I was kind of like seeing things, and it kind of.
You were here as a kid, Bob, and doing all these exploits with your friends. Did you guys comprehend what this actually was?
Yes.
That time? Yes. Okay, so you knew it was a Confederate fortification.
We knew. That's the part I was telling you. Like, if I don't even know if I'll put this part out there. I was in a whippoorwill patrol, and then I became one of my patrols was some guys with this fort. We decided to have a Confederate patrol.
Oh, really?
And we had the Confederate flag was our patrol flag. Okay. So now it's like, okay, if I put this part of it, I don't edit it out. You know what I'm saying? The way things are now, oh, you can't talk about that. But yeah. I'm sitting there going like, but it did happen. Yeah, it did. And okay, I just don't get that part of it, And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm sick and tired of people saying, well, you're a crybaby if you want to think about your heritage. Well, my heritage is my heritage.
No, it's who you are.
Exactly.
And it defines you.
And that's fine. But anyway, we knew, and it was right there too. We were still desegregated. The first 63 when I joined, it was mandatory. We were segregated. And in 65, they signed the papers. Right. So when I went to Meadowbrook, we only had 4 or 5 Black people that were at the school. Right. And they had to bus them, from a long ways off. So we didn't really relate a couple of the guys I did. There was one guy, he became, a newspaper guy. And a couple of fellows, sports brought us together. But still, we weren't really, and then toward the 70s, everybody went kind of nuts there with that Vietnam War. So, and anyway, that's when I saw really our country started changing. And the change drastically in my lifetime has been absolutely amazing,
Oh my gosh, what's happened recently and everything?
Well, I just remember I have uncles. See, I'm 75. I have uncles that were grown when my dad was born, so they might be 130 years old now. And I remember when I went to the funeral of one of them, he said, you know, he saw a lot in his lifetime. He said, horse and buggy to putting a man on the moon. And kids nowadays, they really can't relate. I mean, they think they're relating by looking at their computers, but you have to get out, you have to feel it, you have to see it, you have to communicate.
You know, so much of the change now is on the micro level. But when, you know, like people of my parents' generation and my grandfather, because see, I was the late unexpected surprise. My my maternal grandfather was born in 1879 on a plantation, the family plantation site in northeastern North Carolina, adjacent to the Albemarle Sound. And then my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, my maternal grandfather was born in 79, sold fish to the Wright brothers at Kill Devil Hill.
It's a small world.
At the turn of the last
Yeah.
century. And on my father's side, my grandfather was born around 1884 in Belfast, not Northern Ireland, just Ireland.
Right.
You know, it was before there was a Northern Ireland. And I mean, I'm so Irish. I sound German, but it was the Schroeders who adopted my father, who was born in 1921, May 3rd, when they were still minting the last year of the Morgan silver dollar. And he was born Frederick Richard Coyle, became Richard Coyle Schroeder when he was drafted into the United States Army in World War II. And but yeah, I'm so Irish I could have dual citizenship,
well,
literally.
Well, you know how I've gotten into the history. How did you get into the history part of it? I mean, obviously you're Virginian, so
I have always loved history. When I was a kid, I was absolutely enthralled. Well, with American Civil War.
Someone always tells me that, but I always said narrow it down to: was it a teacher? You're a parent?
Not a teacher.
Something.
And not a parent. It's like it was in my
no DNA. One event.
It's like my DNA. Yeah, I just loved it. I begged my parents to take me to Civil War sites.
Well, how were they about it?
They were more nonchalant about it.
Okay.
But I just really wanted to eat, drink, and breathe history. I watched it on television. I mean, I guess if you attributed it to anything, it was probably television and my exposure to, like, the John Wayne movie, The Alamo.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so, I mean, Davy Crockett, which I loved.
Well, you know,
Daniel Boone, rather.
Now I do look at movies differently, you know, because there are two sides to things. And I'll sit there and I'll go like, yeah, you know, I love John Wayne. I mean, John Wayne and Roy Rogers. I mean, all these guys. But I'm sitting there going like, Roy Rogers, when you look back at the movies now, if a kid looks at Roy, always would be facing a guy and would turn his back on the bad guy. He never could shoot a guy from the front. It was always Pat Garrett was over there saying, look out, Roy. Yeah. And it was always a dirty, dastardly guy was trying, well, wait a minute. But nowadays you realize that friends can be killing friends just like in this war, and brothers, and families are broken up. Yep. But the thing about it is, like, you know, do you get back together or you just stay apart forever? So, but
well, and given the population of the United States, and a lot of mainstream historians now realize that the fatality count associated with the American Civil War was grossly underestimated. You're talking about roughly now 3/4 of a million people lost, and you know, during and after, due to wounds and, you know, whatever. But when you calculate the civilian population that was lost in addition to the military, and given the population of the United States at the time, you're talking about 1 in 8 people lost to this conflict. I mean, it was an astronomical tragedy.
Right.
And the nation was never the same again. For a variety of reasons.
Right. And again, we all live in our own little worlds. I remember as a kid that with news, you didn't have instant access to, oh, hey, somebody got killed in Australia today in a car wreck. I'm going like,
You didn't
I,
have
re,
the
I remember
globalization.
I remember on the Saturday night paper, we used to have like a little thing called the green strip, you know, the way you went in to find out the news or what programs, what few programs we had back in those days. And I saw a little blip one time and they said, you know, there were 6,000 people killed in a typhoon in the Philippines, you know, somewhere over there. And I'm sitting there going, it didn't really mean anything to me because I was a kid, you know, but now it's like you realize like this world really is smaller than you think it is. I used to think, like I said, coming out here, I'm like 30 minutes away from where I grew up. And I'm sitting going, it was completely like going to Disney World in California or something. I never thought I would have ever gone to California, period. You know, it's going like it's just a dream. And watching these guys on television, Roy Rogers and everything, that was kind of like, that's cool. But I actually saw the guy that was played Frog, one of his sidekicks at Southside Plaza one day.
Wow. Wow. How fascinating.
And he's just sitting out there. And he sat down and he talked to me. And I'm sitting there going, I was absolutely amazed. And it's going like, wait a minute, it's a normal guy here,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
So anyway, what?
Yeah, really, really fascinating. And you know, when you talk about, and one thing that fascinates me with history, and that really makes it personal, are the connections. So, you know, for instance, you know, I grew up with my dad, you know, who would have grown up around Civil War veterans. And you think of someone like John Wayne, you know, and we grew up watching John Wayne movies. Well, John Wayne was a pallbearer of Wyatt Earp, who was at Tombstone.
Right.
And I have a family member who was a Confederate chaplain. He was an Episcopal priest on the Texas frontier. And I mean, he was shot at, and Doc Holliday had his office right down a stone's throw from his church in Dallas, which is where Doc Holliday, you know, took a turn south and went to the dark side. Due to the tuberculosis and so forth, it changed his career. And yeah, I mean, but these connections, you know, being in contact with people who were in contact with people who were, you know, it's a succession, and it's very, very interesting.
Well, I know that a lot of times I'm a talker, you know, as you know too.
Well, and I am as well.
And
come from the same place.
Well, I'll start talking to somebody. And my wife she's kind of like, you know, sometimes they roll their eyes like, okay, I'm ready to go, or hey, leave the guy alone. But a little while later, he says, you know, that guy was really cool. You know, I had a guy that I was talking to. I went over to his house to pick up something for my brother, and he had I said, what is that accent? Grew up in Dublin. Next thing I know, we start talking about my Irishness and you know, and
I knew there was something I really liked
that
about you.
but we're sitting there.
I'm trying to get you to come.
I'm just running over to the guy's house. I'm just running over to his house, and we're going home. I said, you know, that guy was so nice. I really enjoyed listening to him. I went, really? The guy that you didn't want me to talk to? You know, so I'm just saying, like, we've got important things to do in this world. But if you're a lot of people that are flying by me, and I say it all the time on the cars, you know, people flying by me going 20 miles over the speed limit, they said they're in a hurry. What are they going to do when they get there? And I always go, nothing. So I don't know. It's like this place out here brings me back.
You're in close proximity to your roots. You can come out here, you can see so much that really hasn't changed all that much over the years.
Right.
And yet when you compare and contrast the two different worlds, and they're so close together, this is almost about to be consumed with the development that's moving through.
Right.
You know, it's just so interesting, the contrast, the difference between Randy and this, Whole Street Road, and this, 288, and this.
This has always been the steepest side over here, facing the Appomattox River back over here to the east. Dry Creek's down here, but you can tell right here. And you talk about briars, you know, we used to run, and we would come back and we looked like somebody just tore every inch of our skin off. And we didn't, as kids, you know, if you had dungarees, great, but if you didn't, we had torn clothes.
Well, I got it. Part of your life is in Brandermill, and part of it was in Briarmill.
Well, Briarville, right. Well, in Brandermill, it was my adult life. You know, I always wanted to come out there because I knew my scout troop at Branch's Church, on Friday nights, we would meet early, pile the canoes on, and come there. That lake was built in the early 60s, and probably and so we would go there and canoe, and there was no Brandermill, there was no Wood Lake, and we just went out there. They had that house at the other end that was an old plantation, and I always wanted to come out here. And this kind of like, and what you see as a kid, it's kind of like, I just kind of knew, going like, I lived in the city, and I lived off of, behind McGuire Hospital, but you know, it's just amazing as people have moved out, you see the city moving out, and
it's following them.
It just makes me feel good to see this place is still here today.
Yeah, and you know, I wasn't